he ever had one canon life, a reference to the man's hardcore world on the part of the writers, but an attribute that doesn't really have a canonical explanation. After all, Phil's hardcore world isn't canon to the SMP. And that, dear viewer, brings us to the secret lore part of this video. Before we can get to that though, please do go down in the description and follow me on Twitch. I stream there a lot and we have a lot of fun. I'd love to grow the community some more, especially since I'm usually live when Dream SMP members aren't live, so you won't have to abandon your streamer. It's a win-win. Anyway, back to the video. I've explained this in a previous video, but there's a huge theory here. A theory that started by giving me the idea to research Phil's lore just a tad more, with a blatant and canonical appearance from perhaps the most beloved non-SMP member amongst SMP fans, Mumza. There are a lot of headcanons on the SMP, and the headcanon for the clip that's currently playing in the background is that the person who made this mystical forest, the person who Phil called she in chat during that clip, that is Mumza, and Mumza is also canonically the goddess of death. There's a lot of explanation behind this theory, and I covered a few cool tangents that would be present if this theory was true in a previous video, but there's more still. For example, the theory is instantly given credibility by the fact that Sadist made a drawing of it. Sadist, who literally drew Phil's wings into canon with this scene from the Dawn of 16th animatic, and therefore has set a precedent for drawing things into existence on the SMP. It also gives us a canonical explanation for Phil only having one life. Sure, it's a nod to his hardcore world, but since that doesn't exist in the SMP canon, instead, the reason for Phil's one life is that the goddess of death loved him so much that she took the other two from him, not to harm him in any way, but just so that they could be that much closer together. She was, in essence, pulling Phil closer to herself by pulling him closer to death. This also does explain how Schlatt was revived, but like before, I've covered that in another video, and in short, Schlatt was always going to be revived, and Wilbur, who was Phil's son and therefore indirectly had Mumza's ear, needed him to be revived as endorsement in the election, and both of these factors led to Schlatt's revival. Now, these are great theories, but there's more, and I want to say thank you to Tumblr user Sharpie Chen for this theory. They'll be linked in the description. This lore is unexpectedly to do with the egg. Phil has shown in the past the egg can affect him, initially calling the vines cozy and warm before hearing what they were telling him and snapping out of it. He's anything but immune to their power, like Tommy and Techno have claimed to be in the past. And this is where Technoblade comes in. The egg draws people in by saying it'll give them what they want, and that's how it got Bad, that's how it got Antros, that's how it got Puns. The thing is that Tommy and Techno are both immune to the egg in this sense because, well, Tommy already has his discs. Techno already has achieved his goal of blowing up L'Manberg and ridding the server of government. They can't be influenced by the egg because it doesn't have its greatest bargaining chip. There's nothing it can promise them that they don't already have or want. But there's another catch. The egg has also actively declared its hostility towards every SMP member it sees as a threat. Every SMP member, in short, that's immune, because they can't be swayed to its side by false promises and clever deception. Every member, that is, except Techno. And now we come back to the recap, because remember, Phil is Techno's only friend, his only attachment of the SMP members after Tommy betrayed him and Wilbur left him. The only person who could emotionally manipulate him on the level that we required for the egg to take over them. And therefore, Phil's lore being able to be controlled by the egg and Phil's involvement in nearly every aspect of Techno's life could lead to the Blood God himself being beaten by the Blood Vine. All because of Phil's. But again, that's pretty much all conjecture up to this point. It's a cool theory, but there's no real evidence to back it up. There's no real proof of any of what I'm saying having any credence on the SMP. Or is there? There's one singular item on the server, one symbol, one recurring object that proves this theory to be at least reasonable, if not true. And that item is the Wither Rose. Again, thanks to Tumblr user Maura Lee, linked in the description, for finding this out. There are very few instances of Wither Roses on the server. Since farms aren't allowed, fighting the Wither and getting roses from Withers killing entities is a waste of time and also extremely hard to do. The places where it is used can be counted on your fingers, and let me list them off for you. We have the In-Between from Carl Jacobs' Tale of the SMP lore, where it's above nearly every book used to communicate with Carl. A rose is also seen in Rambu's house, in Hannah XX Rose's house, and on the Syndicate table, at the center of the secret and deadly organization. And finally, we see a rose in Quackity's lore teaser, and at the Red Banquet. There is one common thread that links all of those places together, and one thing that connects all of these wildly different locations and places and people on the server, and that is corruption. I made an entire video on the In-Between's corruption, which I'll link in the description for you to watch after this video, and it's also very clear from the lore that the people who communicate with Carl through these books,